All right, welcome everyone. This will be our first video in Algebra 2T. We're going to start this year off with solving equations, a little bit of a refresher from what you've seen plenty of times in other math classes. Um, to start off with some vocabulary words, remember the solution of the equation. Well, that is the value of the variable that makes the equation true. If you don't remember variable is like your x, or it could be another letter representing something in an equation you might be solving. So if you had the equation x plus 2 equals 4, well, what would make that true? What plus 2 would equal 4? Well, 2 plus 2 would be 4. So our solution would be 2. There's other ways that we can solve these, but if you see the answer right away, that can save you some time. But most of the time when you solve equations, you're going to use something called inverse operations. That's the next vocabulary word. Inverse operations, remember, are operations that undo each other. So addition and subtraction are opposites and undo each other. Multiplication and division are inverse operations and undo each other. We'll learn some more later this year as we get into different types of functions, but just a little basic review. So we're going to be looking at different types of equations. The most simple is one-step equations. They're called one-step equations because, well, they take one step to solve. So usually pretty simple, not too bad. So remember, when you're solving an equation, your goal is to get the variable by itself. So in this problem, we want to get rid of that plus 4. So what's the inverse, or what's the opposite of adding 4? Well, you would subtract 4 from both sides. That would cancel out on the left. You would just have x equals, well, negative 12 minus 4. You can do that mentally or use a calculator if you need to, but that would be negative 16. And we're done. I want you to try this second problem. So we have x over 5 equals 3. Think about if you know how to get rid of that 5 on the bottom, and then we'll go over it here shortly in this video. All right, so assuming you gave it a try, or maybe you weren't sure, remember x over 5, that's really a fraction. A fraction is another way to write division. So that is really x divided by 5 equals 3. So to undo division, you're going to multiply both sides by 5. And when you multiply a fraction's denominator, it cancels it out. So you would just have x equals, well, 3 times 5 is 15. So if you ever see a fraction, that's a lot of times how you can deal with them. Multiply. Let's look at some two-step equations. So two-step equation, double the fun, basically same concept, just takes 2 steps to solve. So this first one, we still want to get x by itself. So one thing you do need to be careful about, you always want to deal with the part that's not with your variable first. So we have the 2 and the plus 6 in this first example. You want to deal with that plus 6 first. You always kind of want to deal what's added or subtracted, or what's away from your variable first. So, I mean, the opposite of addition is subtraction. Oops, my apologies. All right, so that would cancel. You just have x over 2 equals 1. Similar to the problem we just did, remember a fraction is division, so to cancel that out, you're just going to multiply and make sure you do it to both sides. So that would be x equals, well, 1 times 2 is 2. How about you give this second problem a try, 2x plus 4 equals 8. Think about maybe what your first step might be and see if you can solve it, but we'll go over it here shortly in this video. All right, so assuming you gave this a try, first thing you want to deal with is that plus 4. So you would just subtract that to the other side. That would just bring down the 2x equals 8 minus 4 is 4. 2x, if you don't remember, if there's nothing between a number and a variable, remember that's 2 times x. So to undo that, you're going to divide. So you would just get x equals 4 divided by 2 is 2. So just kind of keep, that's one thing to keep in mind. If you see 5x, for example, that's 5 times x. Don't forget that. If you're not sure how to deal with that, or if it's a little fuzzy. And then the last thing we're going to look at is a multi-step equation. These can get a little bit tricky, especially if certain things aren't super fresh. Maybe you struggled with these when you were in Algebra 1. It's okay, we'll practice these. Honestly, they won't probably come up a ton, but they are good to know because you might need to know this whether you're taking the ACT or if you end up in a college level math class, you might have some tougher equations to deal with. So the first thing in this problem, you're going to distribute. I don't know if you remember when you see a number outside parentheses like this, you got to distribute. It's called distributing. So you're going to multiply that 3 to everything on the inside. So 3 times x would be 3x. 3 times minus 3 would be minus 9 or negative 9, depending on how you want to think about it. Just going to copy the other side just like it was. All right, and my apologies. I just paused the video there because I wanted to rewrite it. It was a little sloppy. So this is a situation where you have variables on both sides. So the goal is we want to get our x's to one side, the constants to the other. So I usually deal with the x part first, because if you deal with the x part and get that done with, you're usually pretty good from there. So I usually look at the smaller value of the x's. So in this case, it would be 3x. So how would I get rid of that? Well, you could subtract it. So if we subtract that from the left side, you would just have negative 27. 6x minus 3x would just be 3x. And then here's where you got to be careful. You're going to bring down that 9. But since it's a minus 9, when you bring it down, it's really going to be a negative 9. So don't forget that minus sign. That's an easy thing to mess up. So now this is really just a two-step equation. We want to deal with that negative 27 first. Since it's negative, you're going to add 27 to both sides. I know some people, you might be thinking, well, it's a plus here, but that plus doesn't go with the 27. So that's why we're adding the negative 20, like to cancel out, we're adding to cancel that out. So I could see that being a potential issue. So if you bring this down, you're just going to have 3x. Negative 9 plus 27, that's going to be positive 18. Remember, this is 3 times x, so you're going to divide. You'll get x equals 6. So I know some of you guys are going to get through this video quicker than others. If you want to try this last problem here, this is going to be one of the problems we're going to go over together on the board as a class. And then we'll kind of have some time to work on our delta math. So I hope this video was helpful. It's one of my first ones this year, so I'm sure it's a little rough around the edges. But this is hopefully kind of will be helpful as you're trying to learn these, because you can always go back and review these videos if you need to before a quiz or something. All right, so I will see you guys in class. I'm recording this before. But have a good one, everyone.